This is DIB Tech Talk, a show where we make sense of all things cybersecurity for the defense industrial base. The threats we face, both digital and physical, man-made, technological, and natural, are more complex, and the threats we face are more diverse than at any point in our history. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA for short, is the nation's risk advisor and works with partners to defend against today's threats to build more secure and resilient infrastructure for the future. CISA builds the national capacity to defend against cyber attacks and works with the federal government to provide cybersecurity tools, incident response services, and assessment capabilities to the critical infrastructure community. Join me as I take a peek inside the cyber toolbox of CISA.
My name is Boyden Roner, and I am the Associate Director for Vulnerability Management at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, which we call CISA, and is the newest operational component of the Department of Homeland Security. An act of Congress passed in 2018, changing us from a headquarters policy and programs focused organization to an operational one, acknowledging how the nation needs to treat cybersecurity as a real operational activity. So it's a pleasure to be here today.
So CISA is established to protect our nation's critical infrastructure with regards to cybersecurity, right?
Exactly. Well, not just cybersecurity. We are the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, so we actually do cyber and physical security. I would say that after 9/11, when Homeland Security was established, there was primarily an emphasis on physical security, but as we all know, threats evolve, and so cyber has really leapt to the forefront in a lot of ways over the last few years. Our physical mission, our Office of Bombing Protection mission is still very, very important, but since we are all so reliant on IT and OT these days, it's been getting a lot more attention than it has in the past. So yes, but we are the department's arm to really organize cybersecurity activities.
Okay, and speaking of that, another recent, very public event was our elections. Can you talk a little bit about how CISA was involved in ensuring that we had the most secure election in our nation's history?
Oh, absolutely. This has been one of our first, major successes, and public ones too. Before we were CISA, and when we were just this headquarters element of DHS, we started building the coalition of election infrastructure partners because, as you can imagine, elections are organized at the state and local level. It is not a federal activity. However, in 2014 or in 16, we realized that the country was facing threats that we had never experienced before, and so the nation really had to organize a response against those unprecedented foreign adversary threats. And so, first and foremost, is organized the community or worked with the state and local government and the already existing organizations that were out there to help bring threat information, to offer services free of charge to the frequently under-resourced state and local governments that are charged with executing our sacred election. And so basically through our information sharing efforts, through our services, which bring back data that helps us understand what the risks are, what the security postures are of all these different stakeholders, we are able to, tailor risk advice that's meaningful to them, that can help them really prioritize their very constrained resources to have more secure infrastructure.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of our infrastructure has constrained resources. Can you talk a little bit more about the services that you offered to all of the critical infrastructures and not just to the election activities?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So we offer our most popular service is what we call our cyber hygiene service. And this is comprised of a suite of services, but the most notable one is our network vulnerability scanning service. And this is something that is easy for organizations to enroll in. It is done at no cost to the organization. So you can certainly buy a similar service from a private sector vendor and they'll do a great job, but you can get our service for free. And in turn, CISA gets the insight into what's going on in the nation's critical infrastructure. So we can then identify if, number one, there are new services that we can offer that can help organizations improve their security. And number two, we can look for the ways that we can advocate or lobby or direct for more systemic change across an entire critical infrastructure sector or across an entire national critical function, which is what we call something that is so critical to the American way of life that we could not exist, without it, like voting or power generation or distribution or something like that.
Yeah. So how do companies enroll in these cybersecurity hygiene services?
You can get enrolled by going to the CISA website, CISA.gov, and look for the button that says services, and you can click that, and it will launch an email that will get you in touch with our teams that can help process the paperwork to get you started.
So you said that CISA gains insights from enrolling in the services. Are those insights anonymized, or how can these organizations ensure that they're protected, I guess, from Big Brother potentially looking and listening and everything that they do?
That's a great question. This is foundational to our ability to do these services in the first place, is that while the data is protected and in accordance with a legal agreement that the organization signs with us. So it's very clear what we're going to do with the data. It's clear that we will never use it in an attributable way with any other partners. If we use it at all, in addition to giving the customer a report back that helps them identify where they should focus their energies. And in the case of our cyber hygiene scanning, that report comes to them weekly, unless they have a critical or high vulnerability, and then we send that report, as soon as we identify that, so they can take quick action. But other than that, we will roll up the summary. We'll roll up the results of our services into trends that identify what is going on per sector. So for example, we were able to do a election infrastructure security report that went out to all the national security offices, or the state and local offices that help with elections, which will talk about things that we've been finding even if that individual entity wasn't able to get one of our services.
Any company can seek services from CISA, or do they need to be designated as a critical infrastructure company?
Yeah, any any company can seek services from CISA in our highly scalable ones. However, the priority is given to those that are critical infrastructure or really help us with filling our visibility gaps into the status of the nation's critical infrastructure.
So, do you guys announce who your priorities are for the critical infrastructure categories, or is that something that is secret sauce for CISA each year based on, I guess, last year's data?
It's a little bit of both. For example, it was no secret that the elections infrastructure subsector was important to us, and also that organizations supporting the COVID pandemic response were a high priority for us too. A lot of those organizations transcend not just the healthcare sector, but many other sectors, since there was critical manufacturing and other parts of the supply chain that were integral. But in many ways, it's published. In some ways, it's just important for us to know where we need to fill our visibility gaps and data gaps.
Yeah. So, with all of these insights and data and information that you guys collect, can you talk a little bit about your information sharing forums and how those of us not in CISA can get insights into what you guys are finding, and how we can help share or at least get some of that information based on what you're collecting?
Absolutely. We have a big microphone, but it's only good if people know how to get access to it or know where to listen. So, the first place that people can go to get updates on any alerts or any uh, deep analysis that we have published is to the CISA.gov website or to the US CERT website and subscribe for our alerts. You can tailor your subscription by what's important to you, as in, what sector you're in. That is a very valuable service. You will know exactly when we're amplifying a vulnerability that we have found that was once a 0-day and is now being disclosed. That's where we publish our work when we work with a vendor, a product vendor, and a security researcher. We will put those out. We'll also put out notices that we've, published an article on threat activity that we're seeing, whether it's in the federal government space or if it transcends many sectors. We will publish our findings there. We do a lot of joint products with the FBI or with other countries, with the NSA, wherever we can find partners, we're going to be pumping out our information through the US CERT and CISA.gov websites, and then you could subscribe to those. Also, if you're looking for more tailored information, tailored to you, that could be at a level that's closer hold than just publicly available information. If you're looking for, unclassified but for official use only, or what we call sort of TLP Amber, Traffic Light Protocol Amber messaging that's really not meant for the general public, you can subscribe to an information sharing and analysis center or information sharing and analysis organization. These are organizations that CISA highly recommends. We in fact sponsor the multi-state Information Sharing Analysis Center and the Election Infrastructure Subsector Information and Sharing Analysis Center. Mouthfuls there, but they're very impactful. They have a very intimate relationship with their constituents. They know their needs, they know how to cater to them, and they are great partners with us because we will publish special information through them when we think we've got something that they could value from.
And how do companies find these multi-state or which organizations apply to these companies? How do they find them?
Well, they can find them through a number of ways. I think it's first by identifying that you are a member of a critical infrastructure sector, and then Googling around. There's about 25, formal information sharing and analysis centers out there. Some of them, you subscribe to. Some of them are more costly than others, but they're a great way to self-organize. And we have found that peers are more likely to share information with each other than they are with an outsider. So it's great to have that shared sense of community with, organizations that are doing similar work to you, that are going to have similar problems, probably have similarly resourced. So those are great ways to really get it into the community and probably be a little bit more forthcoming than you would be with just some strangers.
No, that's right, because if you're in the same industry or a similar industry, you probably have similar processes or, systems or something. So it makes sense to share with people who are in a similar boat as you are, as opposed to some foreign concept to you. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. So does CISA have toolkits or something that companies can readily access to help them with trying to implement a cybersecurity program or to get started doing the critical protection things that they should be doing?
Yes, we do have toolkits, and you can find those on the CISA.gov website as well. Last year, we were really focused on providing tools to small and medium-sized businesses because we felt like those are the organizations that probably need that help the most. The better resource organizations, they can afford higher cost consultants or CISOs and things like that. But a lot of our critical infrastructure results on folks who are wearing many hats within their organization and are worried about, keeping their own organization operational, let alone secure. So we do have a lot of resources for small and business organizations.
That's fantastic. Um, I that's amazing. All these things exist, and I don't know if people realize that they're out there. So thank you for sharing this information. And I want to kind of go back to these US CERT alerts and emails that you can sign up for. What if I am in a larger company that's, maybe medium to large size company, and I'm just the IT person or the cybersecurity person, and I need to communicate to my C-suite the importance of cybersecurity? Do you guys offer alerts or notifications that I can present to my leadership and not have to translate cyber speak into C-suite speak?
Leslie, you're speaking right to my heart when you ask this question because I really believe that a lot of the problems that we have are because it's very hard to communicate some technical concepts to the diverse audiences that need to pay attention in order to get the teams that need to do the work resourced. It's for a lot of folks, the information of cybersecurity sounds like organic chemistry. It sounds like it's Greek. And so, how do you arm people who are steeped in that technical background with talking points that are going to resonate with their CEO who, might not have had that kind of an education? We are increasingly working on writing our products in a way that is plain language. We already write, I think, in a really great plain language way, but in the case of the last major Microsoft Exchange vulnerability that CISA was amplifying and trying to get attention to, we did something really novel by also offering a toolkit that involved, messaging that the CISO, who we assume is usually our customer at CISA, could then take to communicate up to their leadership and then also communicate to their IT staff. So that is sort of a creative way we're trying to help arm the folks that we know have they're on the front lines with tools that can help them get the appropriate level of attention to their problems.
That's so important. You made such a great point. I just assumed communicating up, but definitely communicating down to the, people with hands on keyboard on your infrastructure, on your network. They have to be aware of these vulnerabilities. So
Yeah.
it's also very important. Um,
Also sometimes too, sorry, Leslie,
no,
sometimes too, users have to interface. For example, like here at DHS, we have mobile phones. A lot of our mobile phones require, user interaction to apply a security update. And, just writing to your user who doesn't even know that there is what a CISO is, doesn't even know that their company or their agency has a security operations center, writing to them in a way that makes it easy for them to say, oh, yes, let me go pick up my iPhone and do that security update. Even those little links in the chain make a big difference.
Yeah, well, I mean, I signed up for these alerts. I have none of these roles in any company, but I want to know for my own use,
Right.
like what I should be looking out for as an individual, not necessarily for a company, but just for my own data privacy and security. So that's
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions. Is there anything else you want to talk about or make sure that we alert everybody to anything else that DHS does or CISA does that really people should be aware of?
Oh, thank you, Leslie. Well, I love the anecdote you just gave of like taking care of your own personal security because now, that's never been more important with us all working from home. We're on our home Wi-Fi networks, and we are VPNing in to our office's infrastructure. So the boundaries are much more blurry than they've ever been. And we continually discover through our incident responses that oftentimes the adversaries are going after not directly at their big fish, their big target. They're going after the links in the chain that are weaker, and then they're using those to pivot in. And so you never want to be you never want to be the lowest hanging fruit for the adversary. You want to do exactly what you can do to keep yourself, above water, or not a graceful analogy, but I'm going to make it anyway. That proverbial, if you encounter a bear in the woods, you don't need to outrun the bear. You just need to outrun your friend. You want to be that organization that's ahead of your peers in their security because you don't want to be that low hanging fruit for the adversary.
So, what is the first thing? So, let's say that I've been totally asleep at the wheel of my own personal cybersecurity for my home use, not necessarily for a company, but now that we've been working from home for the last year. What are some really basic things that I could do today to like start going in the right direction?
Yeah, terrific. Keep all of your equipment up to date. Make sure that you are, patching your equipment just like we are advocating, offices to do or organizations to do. Making sure you're not reusing your passwords over multiple websites. Invest in a password manager. They're making it easier and easier to do every day, and not one of us can keep, upwards of 40 passwords straight in our heads. And just staying up to date, even subscribing to CISA's alerts might let you know that the router that you're using has a vulnerability that has a patch or might not be patchable. So just keeping educated and asking questions and being curious.
Great. That's great tips. I think that's super user friendly. And if people aren't doing that, I tell friends all the time to update your iPhones. Most of my friends have iPhones, and I'm like, install those security updates. And they look at me like I'm a crazy nerdy cyber person. I'm like, no, they're usually patching some sort of vulnerability,
Exactly.
not just pushing updates to what your keyboard looks like. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Mr. Owner, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate all of these resources that CISA has, and all of your knowledge and wisdom. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Leslie. It's been a pleasure being here.